everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm talking to Megan. She is doing a YouTube channel, which has already been going for a little bit, but we're going to introduce that. I'd like to encourage you to subscribe, just more good LDS content. I'm trying to promote the sisters because of this last general conference where President Kimball said that the sisters in the church are going to be very instrumental in bringing in large numbers of people into the church. So having this platform, I figured that maybe I would do my part and try and get people going with that mission. So anyway, welcome, Megan.
Hi, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So you've been doing a channel for a little while now. What's your channel about?
So it used to be called Four Littles and Frankie. I have 4 kids and we have a dog named Frankie. It's now called The Family Life. Originally, it just started as a way to keep in contact with my family. My husband was in the military, so we moved excessively.
He was in the Air Force, right?
Yep, he was in the Air Force for about 10 years. But now it's more, my kids are they're all about YouTube and they want to put content out. And so we're doing homeschooling, homesteading, and then I wanted to start to incorporate some of my educational background and skills.
Okay, awesome. Oh, so you guys are homesteaders?
Newly, yes.
Newly? Oh,
yes.
Cool. How much property do you have?
3.6 acres in the
That's
Georgia
enough.
wilderness.
Yeah. And you're in Georgia, right?
We are, yes.
What part of Georgia are you in?
Middle Georgia.
Okay.
The heartland of Georgia. It's a tiny little town. We weren't actually supposed to move. That's one of the things is like, when my husband was in the military, we weren't supposed to move. So the fact that we're even here is kind of, we feel like we're here for a reason. And we have talked about going back to Idaho, but the prices are kind of insane.
Yeah.
And with a big family, we couldn't have the same quality of life. And I love our little woods out here. So we're figuring we'll just build up, the church out here.
Yeah. And I think that's important. I always talk about how it seems like a lot of people are moving to the Midwest, but I think there also needs to be a lot of more people, if possible, going to places like where you're at, because for so long, the church has been really strong in the West, and that's great. But at the same time, for some of us, like you, where you just feel prompted, inspired, maybe the Lord wants to start to kind of bolster up other places within the United States, just other places, Canada. So yeah. I think it's really good. So yeah, that's really awesome. Do you have any animals or gardening or anything like that?
We just got a garden put in. The deer out here, there's a lot of them, and our neighbors like to feed them, and so that they come and eat everything. I've planted elderberries a few times and now I have them gated off, but we call it our plant penitentiary because we have barbed wire at the top and we have a big fence to keep the deer out. And then our neighbors had goats, but they all died. I guess it was a bad year for goats.
Oh, wow.
And they have chickens. So we're kind of learning with our neighbors as they do it.
Yeah, cool. I would recommend, if possible, this is just my own preference, just do cows if you want to, unless you're like lactose intolerant. Some people do goats because they're lactose intolerant, but cows compared to goats, because I've done goats before. Goats are harder, but that is really cool. And definitely do chickens. Definitely, chickens are the best.
Yeah.
Do you have like any type of chicken that you like the best, like breeds? Do you know your breeds?
There's so many to learn. No, I have no idea. We're new, so I'm just learning all of this as we go. But I don't know.
All right. Well, for anyone out there that's interested in it, there's different types of chickens. And basically what you need to know is you have some chickens that are just good as egg layers, some chickens that are only good mostly as meat. And then you have some dual purpose breeds. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we happen to have some, they're called Sussex, and they're really pretty. They're like speckled and stuff, but they're good. They're like really good dual purpose birds. So, and like you can get meat off of any chicken, but like if it's one that's not really a meat chicken, it's just because they're small and you don't get much meat off of them.
Yeah. I'm much more comfortable with like herbs and gardening than I am with the animal stuff yet, but we're going that direction.
Yeah. Well, if you ever need help or any advice, then I'm here for you.
Oh, I'm sure we will. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Well, that's cool. I wish everybody could have a homestead because it feels there's like you get a little bit of a sense of self-fulfillment doing it. It's like you have a
Yeah.
little world and it's just nice. It's
Yeah.
nice to be able to
Well,
like
what did they used to call them? Like victory gardens, where you, instead of landscape, you had your own produce. We're gonna have to do that soon anyway because of shortages and stuff.
I yeah, I hope not. But yeah,
It
that
would be
very well
good to
could be.
have at the very least.
I'll tell you what, I feel a lot better now because we used to live in Arizona for a while, in a desert where things don't
Mhm.
grow too well. I mean, you can do gardening there, but I feel a lot better now having land enough to have animals and a sizable garden and also
Mhm.
not have to worry so much about drought. Whenever I look at the drought monitor, I don't think Georgia looks too bad. Like
Oh no.
you guys are good with water.
Yeah, we're good with rain. We just, it's probably less than normal, but we get so much rain here. That was definitely adjustment from Idaho, where it's like it'll rain for 5 minutes and then it's done. It'll be a few hours here.
No, wait, now, now are you and him originally from Idaho or are you from different
Yeah.
places?
No, we met in second grade and we both grew up in Idaho.
Oh, second grade. Oh, wow.
We never dated in school, but we have a friendship. So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
great. That's good because I feel like one of the successes to my marriage is that I knew my wife for quite a while before we got married, which allowed me and her to see each other as our true selves rather than our
Yes.
dating selves.
Yes. Oh, I like that. That's a good way to put it. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So that's right. Where did you guys get married?
Oh, we got married in Boise, which is where we both grew up. So he was a convert. He joined the church when he was 20, and we got married early because he had orders to move somewhere else. And you have to be baptized I think you have to wait a year before you, hold on, let me get this right. After you've been baptized, you have to wait a year before you can get sealed in the temple. So we were civilly married first, and then we went back and got sealed. And I think we even got to go just a little bit early. And
Yeah,
then we were sealed in Boise.
in Boise.
Mhm.
And I can't remember, but I think that's changed because I think that's how I don't know if it's
That was
still,
like 13 years ago. So it probably has changed.
yeah, because it's been brought up on the channel, like in the comments, that it seems like part of the hastening
Mhm.
for the second coming and stuff is that they're kind of like lessening those restrictions to where it's like, no, you don't have to wait, just go ahead and go. I think I can't remember
I
the
feel like
specifics.
that's probably accurate because we, I know we had to get permission, but they were pretty fine making it so that we didn't have to wait the full year.
Hmm, that's
We
good.
just had to have permission.
So with your channel, are you gonna like be doing more LDS stuff or what does your channel look like going forward?
Um, so I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. I'm currently in a clinical mental health counseling program, and there my passion is kind of addressing the mental health crisis that we're going through, especially uh, in tandem with family life. So I want to start incorporating more of that. I wrote a book. It's called Practice Perspective, but there's this shift that needs to happen because the culture has kind of become much more self-centered, and people are miserable, and people aren't able to find relationships, and moms feel like they should be in the home, and there's a lot of this just negativity going around. So I want to inject sort of positive family life, the homeschooling and the homesteading and the traditional values into YouTube, because there seems to be a lack of that.
Yeah. So when you say um mental health crisis, I think that's what you said. What is that
Mhm.
referring to exactly? Because I'm not sure that I'm aware or up to
Sure.
date with that.
Especially for the younger generations that are coming up, there's a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, and then there's a ton of narcissism. So empathy is dropping and narcissism is skyrocketing, which is like it's essentially the opposite of empathy. You're not able to connect with others. You'll lie and you'll feel like you're a victim while you're victimizing other people. So that's sort of what I want to address. I feel like a lot of it comes from the um, ideologies that are I don't want to get too political. I don't know. I'm still new. I don't know what I can say and can't say on YouTube. And I don't want to like,
Well, I think what you're about to say is fine. There's like,
okay. Well, I
usually
want to
when it
talk
comes
about,
to like Gaddy and robber type things, you have to be careful, things that are not supposed to be talked about, like that how power and governments actually work. You can't like talk
yes.
about that kind of stuff really. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, but Gaddy and Roberts is like so on the nose. It's so perfect. I love reading my scriptures and feeling like, oh, okay, they understand. It's not anything new. It's stuff that's been around. But feminism is one of the main things that I think is plaguing a lot of people, and that's something that I could go on about forever.
So I okay, I guess I'll just say it. I started a channel about narcissism. I haven't really continued with it because like that's something I could talk about forever. Because both from the I guess clinical standpoint, the diagnosis, the DSM and stuff like that, but also the spiritual standpoint. What do you feel like?
It's all connected.
Do you feel like it's kind of the same thing? Because a lot of people want to make that distinction. They want to be like, no, this is a personality disorder. But I want to say, well, yeah, it's a rigid way of being, but it's probably stems from what you're doing, how you approach life spiritually, from a spiritual. What do you think?
Oh, for sure. Yes. No, absolutely. 100% agree with that. I think there definitely are I guess I'll say chemical issues or like biological dispositions, but then behavior is a huge factor for either exacerbating issues or improving, right? So people can become worse or better depending on their behavior. And a lot of that is like, so here's the fascinating, do you know who Jordan B. Peterson is?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that I love is that there's this, it's like the polar, I don't know. Okay, let me try to get into this. So Jordan B. Peterson is going through, he went through the Bible and he's like, look, these are the things we can take away from these stories that are psychologically rich and beneficial, right? So there's this resurgence of, well, maybe there is benefit to these things that we didn't realize. And then the other layer to that is, well, there's truth there and there's truth there for a reason. But I think there's definitely an awakening going on where people are realizing you can't just, you're kind of tossing out the baby with the bathwater by saying this stuff is silly and made up. It's like, no, it serves civilization for, forever. It's precious.
Yeah. I feel like there's also an awakening. Well, when it comes to this like bad behavior in these personalities, I guess what psychology would typically refer to as the cluster B personalities, where I don't think people really understood it to a wide degree before the age of YouTube and stuff. Like people are starting to kind of like understand it, because like go back even just like maybe a few years, maybe like 5 years, you didn't really hear terms like gaslighting as much as you do now. And gaslighting is a favorite tool of people that are narcissists.
Yep.
Entitlement, there's a lot of like, that's like one of the buzzwords right now, and that's something that goes along with narcissism because it's part of their personalities, that they feel that they're entitled to special treatment or whatever. So I feel like in general, when it comes to that particular field of psychology, I feel like there's a growing awareness of it, and you're starting to actually hear the word narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder just flat out being said in shows and movies more so than in the past. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it does. And then on the other end of that, where you have this awakening, I guess, you also have people that are like diving headfirst into that. And they're like, well, life should be about me and what I want. And I'm going to, self-love and self-care to the extreme, where it's like, you're nurturing neuroses and you're nurturing narcissism, and you're going to end up being alone and miserable because life is a team sport, but you're completely Like you can't put yourself first all of the time.
Yeah. Okay, so do you know who Sam Vaknin is? Have you heard of Sam Vaknin?
Mm-mm.
He's like one of the lead, I guess, researchers specifically into narcissistic personality disorder.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually an Israeli, and he himself is one. He's been diagnosed 3 times because like he he got into like serious trouble with the law. He was like in finance before, and he got in trouble with like fraud, and he hit like rock bottom like 3 different times, like really rock bottom in his life. And
Yeah.
he went to see a psychologist, and all 3 times they're like, you have narcissistic personality disorder. And so then he finally accepted it, and then he studied it. He got a degree in it. I think he has a PhD in psychology. And so he's talked about how the way that the world is going right now, that from like a secular standpoint or from a survival standpoint, that narcissism has become like a beneficial survival strategy
Yeah.
in
Oh,
this world.
wow.
And that's sad, but I think that just like you're saying, that's kind of like the way things are going, is that you thrive more. And I guess that's always been the case, but especially now you thrive more the more narcissistic you are.
I think in the moment, but then
Yeah.
long term, it's not going to help you.
Right. Yeah. It's just it's a very disturbing thing to me, because I feel like essentially what it is, if you're okay, so if you're going to books like scholarly books about it, if you're reading books that are psychological books, and you study narcissism, I feel like what you're really studying is the mechanics of evil, or the what evil actually looks like.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, it's pride.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. I'm going to have to sit with that for a minute.
Yeah. It's just okay. The way that I look at it, the way that psychology describes it, is that a person begins this life, they come across trauma, it breaks them, and then they adopt this horrible strategy to defend themselves psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
The true self kind of like takes a back seat, and then the false self is the facade. It's the fake facade that protects.
What you present.
Yeah. And I don't know, I could be wrong, but I feel like what it is from an LDS standpoint is your true self, your spirit, is taking a back seat to the natural man. Because everything that the narcissist does, it's all according to the laws of the jungle. It's all about survival. It's about rising above those in your community, and just you surviving and thriving, basically.
Yeah.
That, to me, that sounds very much like Satan. Whenever he shows up in the scriptures, it's always about worship me, give me glory, I want power. Don't worry, I'll take care of all this. You guys don't have to do any thinking. I'll do all the thinking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's essentially
I think that's a fantastic way of putting it.
Yeah. That's essentially what they do. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I just posted a video yesterday, and then I was watching one of yours, and you were talking about empathy and narcissism, and I thought that was interesting. But do you know who Daryl Davis is?
That kind of sounds familiar, but no, I can't say that I do.
Daryl Davis is, I think he's from DC. He's a Black man, blues player, jazz musician. One second. Please just leave it there. And he, on a chance meeting, he ran into a member of the KKK, like a card-carrying KKK person. And they became friends, which, is really strange. And then Daryl said, well, hey, let me interview your head guy, because he wanted to know, how can you hate me without even knowing me, So he wrote a book, I think it's called Clandestine Relationships. And I think that's what it's called. And to me, aside from Christ, he is the best modern example of empathy, because a lot of people, I think people want to assume empathy is understanding someone or feeling what they're feeling, but it's understanding from their frame of reference, not your own. And so when Daryl goes and seeks to see what they're seeing and really tries to understand someone who doesn't really deserve to be understood, I think that's what empathy is. And that's what we're lacking, because we're separated by all these ideologies, and like, there's this demand to be understood without seeking first to understand.
Yeah. And I feel like empathy is critical. I feel like it's an essential part of repentance, because now this is something that I really question. If you're a member of the church and you're a narcissist, one of their main characteristics is that they don't take accountability for things. They never apologize. They never say that they're sorry. And when you're repenting, I feel like part of that process is that you have to exercise empathy, because you've wronged somebody in some way. And so you have to have an understanding that you did something wrong, acknowledge it, maybe understand it from their point of view, like, oh yeah, if this would have happened to me, I don't understand, I don't have that lifestyle, but if I did, and if someone had done that to me, I would not have liked it. Therefore, I need to repent. And this is what gives me godly sorrow, because I can kind of feel it from their point of view.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder, if you're a member of the church, you have narcissistic personality disorder, do these people actually ever go through that process? Because if they don't, that's a big problem. It means that they're stuck at the second principle of the gospel.
Right.
The first is faith, and then the next one is second. So you can like go get baptized, you can go to the temple, you can get sealed. But if you're stuck at number 2 and you never truly feel for the other person, you don't feel bad for what you did, you don't have remorse, you're always justifying your actions to create an illusion that you never do anything wrong, that might be spiritually not good for you.
Right. You're damned. You're totally blocking yourself. I think it requires a vulnerability. If you can't be vulnerable, then you can't be empathetic. And the narcissist doesn't want to be vulnerable. They don't want to have ownership for anything. But until you have ownership of your own actions in your life, you can't progress.
Yeah. So that's why I just, I can't, none of us can judge, right? Because we don't truly know. But it just, if I were to guess, I would think that if you are living that lifestyle, that it's not going to turn out well for you. I keep using the example of the Pharisees at the time of Christ, because I think that
that's a good example.
They were typical narcissists, because they were looking for power. They were looking to set themselves up as a light, or just get admiration, or all the, narcissistic supply in whatever form. That's how you did it. If you lived in that society, you rise to the top.
Yeah.
That's how you get your
I think that's why I like Nicodemus so much, is because he expected to see things from a specific frame like the rest of them. But then when it came down to it, he was willing to consider, am I wrong?
Yeah. So therefore, he wasn't really a narcissist, because he was considering, because I think sometimes members of the church, they just kind of demonize all the Pharisees or Sadducees. And I think that just like with any group of people, you have some that are genuine. They think they're actually doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And they're doing it for the right reason. But then there's others that are the fakers. They're imitators. They're not real. Huh?
The wheat and the tares.
The wheat and the tares. And so therefore, there probably were a number of Pharisees that we may not even be aware of that actually were like Nicodemus. And they're like, okay, wait. This is Christ.
Yeah, you have to question your whole worldview and everything that you thought you knew. Actually, have you read, I yanked on my cord. Have you read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl?
No.
Okay, it's a life-changing book. He was a Holocaust survivor and a psychotherapist. He created existentialism, or one of the branches of it. In his book, he talks about how some of the prison guards were kinder to some of the prisoners than other prisoners, because there was a hierarchy of the prisoners where some would try to seek power over others and they would abuse others. And it's like they're all in this horrible, bottom position, but they still try to exert whatever power they can. And then, so it's like, no matter what group anybody is, there's good and there's bad everywhere.
Yeah. And that's why I just did a video. So I'm going to post the video that I just recorded before this. I'm going to post this today and then post this interview tomorrow, if that's okay, because it's like a longer video. But I was just talking, the point of the video was in the millennium, everyone's going to have to face an ugly, ugly reality when people are basically outed as telestial living people. People that are telestial will not be moving on into the millennium. And I think that people that don't really understand narcissism, how people can be fake, are going to be confused when you have like an uncle, oh, he was a bishop and he was always like giving to people. He was a good guy. They don't understand that there are people that will do all sorts of good things, but for bad reasons. They're doing it because they want the reward of attention, admiration, praise, narcissistic supply. So
Right.
I think everyone needs to be ready for the millennium, because people that some, not all, but some people that you thought were good may not really be that way. And maybe you kind of know it deep down. You see the red flags.
Then there will also probably be people that, maybe we judge too quickly, that are doing the best that they can and more sincere, I guess, than some that we would assume are.
Yeah. The other way around too. Yeah. And that's why, again, we can't judge because people lie. And then sometimes people are doing their best, and it's just hard to discern that, especially when you have people that are narcissists that look like they're shining examples. And you're like, oh, look at this person compared to this person. And then this person is actually like on the right track, whereas this person is just a fake imitator.
Yeah.
So whenever I hear stories of like people that get upset about religion, like maybe they get upset at our church or some other Christian church, and they're like, oh, they're just a bunch of hypocrites. I think sometimes those people, they're right, because they've had bad experiences with narcissists.
That's most of the people. Yeah. Most of the people that I know have either left the church or have a bad feeling about the church in general have had specific bad experiences. Which, you can't judge or generalize the whole thing from one experience or even multiple, but there's definitely damage done.
Yeah.
From experiences like that.
And it's unfortunate when they get a bad taste in their mouth, but it's from someone that's not really wheat. They're a tare, and they drive you from the church. Of course, sometimes people that are driven from the church, they themselves are narcissists. So sometimes you might have some of that where it's just like narcissist makes another narcissist mad, but sometimes it's narcissist offends a genuine person.
Yeah.
And they feel like it's a toxic place. It's like, I don't want to be here because these people are hypocrites, or so it's complicated.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, but life is, and that's one of the things that I want to start to incorporate is I feel like, especially the younger generation is being sold these lies about what will make them happy. And on the one hand, while we're learning that, kids do better with a mother and a father, and they have all of these advantages growing up and then going into adulthood that people don't. And while that's the ideal and not everyone is going to meet that, that doesn't mean we shouldn't aim for that. But we're definitely not prioritizing traditional values in our current culture.
No. And I feel, I don't want to like paint a bleak picture, but I don't know if there's anything that can really turn this around except for the second coming itself.
Right. No, I feel the same way. I think about, I really appreciate your channel and the specifics that you talk about, because those are some of the things that I miss. Mostly what I can see is like Isaiah 5:20, good will be called evil and evil will be called good. And especially in the mental health, social science fields, that's 100% what is happening. So like the APA, the American Psychological Association, and these different organizations they're nurturing neuroses. They're making people mentally ill out of political convenience or out of, they want to be politically correct.
Yeah. Because like this is a situation where when you look at science as a whole, all different branches of science, medicine, um, it's kind of scary that certain truths can become victim to uh, political agendas or Satan's agenda.
Mhm.
It's scary how you would think that truth on its own would survive and thrive, but that's not the case, because people are not concerned with the truth, especially if you're a narcissist. Because I
Mhm.
gave the example, I think in a couple videos ago, if you're somebody that you're a scholar, you've been working on a certain theory for a number of years, you have a lot of pride associated with it. You've maybe won awards, or you've been noticed by your community, and then a new piece of information comes along that throws your theory out the window.
Mhm.
um, a genuine person would be like, well, that, at least I got good out of what I did, and I did my best. I'm still proud of what I did. But a narcissist would more likely, it depends on the situation, but would more likely fight to keep that hidden.
Yeah,
Be
they'd
like,
rather live in an alternate reality.
yeah, they don't care about truth. And that's
Mhm.
why I
It's
think
my
a lot of
truth,
people don't
which is
understand them, because a lot of us do prefer to live in a world of truth. So it's like weird
Mhm.
to think that there's people that are perfectly happy and at home living in fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So has it been like discouraging to you, the state of psychology, or maybe people you've had to work with? Has it been hard in any way, or is it just kind of, I don't know what?
No, it's definitely been hard. I specifically chose like the most conservative graduate school because I just like I have no patience for it. When racism is redefined as racism towards specific groups as the only type, like
Yeah.
I that's not what that is. Or when um, you know, we talk about feminism and the gender pay gap as if it's fact when it's not. It's based on different choices. So to me, it's like they're taking the path of the sun in the sky as evidence that, the sun revolves around the earth. Like, well, I've seen this, I've observed this, so this is my my interpretation of it. It's like, well, that's not true though. But it seems like observation and your own perspective is enough.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's what Sister Nelson was referring to. I can't remember if it was during the young adult devotional, but recently she gave a talk where she was talking about the emperor's new clothes, and how we need to be the people that don't go along with the lie and be like, no, he doesn't have
Which
any
is
clothes on.
uncomfortable. It's a really hard thing to do, but I mean, culture is changed by individuals, so more individuals need to start participating, I guess, which is why I'm on YouTube. I'd rather not be.
Yeah. If there is a way to turn it around, that's, I think, the only way. It can't really be
Mhm.
done by making laws, although laws can help, but you can't really do things by force. It has to
No.
it has to come from us genuinely. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I 100% agree. One of the things that I think is fascinating is that you cannot force morality because then you have like you can only go so many steps on Sunday, but you can't have freedom without morality. So there's this weird push and pull, and it has to be, a balance in the middle of the most freedom, but there has to be morality and tradition and something to hold everything together.
Yeah. I think it's so critical for us to basically be seen by the world, by our community, our neighbors, or whatever. Like I think about my girls' friends. Like I live in a small town. We're the only active members in town. There's like a couple that are
Mm.
like inactive, but for all intents and purposes, we're basically the
Same.
only members in this town. Okay, you too. So whenever my girls have like their friends over, I always like want to make sure that, for example, our house is clean, in that the spirit can be felt in our house, because they don't get it in their own home, and they certainly don't get it from very many other people in town. Everyone's
Mhm.
kind of like on the same level. No, I mean, not everybody, but I want them to be able to see the difference here, because that is one way to hopefully rub off on them and make them notice that there's something different, something that they want to emulate. So we have to like put ourselves out there, whether it's YouTube
Yes.
or hanging out with neighbors or whatever, so that it spreads.
Yeah, no, for sure. My kids had to convince me to do the whole YouTube thing, and they love it. And they, they let their light shine. And I definitely need to participate more and be more vocal about things that matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the reality of it, and this lesson is within natural science, is that light so easily will get rid of darkness if you just turn it on, or if you ignite some kind of light source, darkness flees. It's a lot harder, I think, for the dark to operate when there's a light source. Now, it's easy for people to give in to darkness because darkness is the way of easiness. It's the natural man. It's the easy thing to do. But if someone stands up and shines forth their light, everyone recognizes it. And the darkness has to put in a lot more work to try and cover that light up.
And there's sort of a visceral reaction from some people that do not like light, and they will let you know, like, it's offensive to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you live in a small town like me. Like, how large is your town?
6,000 people.
6,000. Just for people that are curious about, moving to a small town or moving somewhere east of, Colorado. What has your experience been like? How do you feel? Like, do you like where you live? Is it
I love it.
From Idaho and stuff?
Very different. It's very different. There's definitely a culture in the South. One of the things I appreciate is that while there isn't a lot of LDS here, there's definitely a Christian culture here. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I expect membership to go up and the church to be spread pretty quickly, especially considering all the events that are going on. I could be off base, but that's my interpretation, I guess. We are between two wards. So we have friends in one, we go to the other one because that's what we're assigned to. We go to both. There's a Bible study that we go to, or a Come Follow Me study that we go to, and the one that we're not assigned to, because people are just kind of hungry for more. I found, especially with the Come Follow Me.
Well, it's interesting because I just realized with you saying that, maybe you personally will be really instrumental in your area, affecting other good women of the world, where Christianity is starting to kind of, it's dying basically, and they're looking for good, and they may see that in you because, like, you're one of the only. Are there many other people in your town that are LDS?
No.
No.
I think there's one or two inactive people, but we are the only family.
Okay, yeah. So just like me, basically. Is there? Do you know if there's like a singles ward in your stake or like anywhere nearby?
Not within an hour.
No.
Our stake is about an hour away, or we have to drive an hour to stake.
Yeah. Well, we do too. My stake is like an hour away. It's in Wichita. Although in that area we do have a single adult or a singles ward or whatever. Just for other people that are thinking about, there are singles wards here. They're not just in the West. So anyway, okay, that's cool. So you're really enjoying it though, and
I love it. Yeah, it's definitely an adjustment. People will know you, wherever you go. So you kind of have to be aware of yourself, and that you are not being watched, but people will know, if you do things or how you behave. My kids have made friends with the cashier at the store, and it's just like, there's these connections that can develop easily because there's not that many people.
Yeah. There's more. I don't know if I was talking to somebody else about this, like in another interview, but there's like more accountability when you live in a small town for that exact reason, which I think can be a good thing because, when you're in a large city, you're in a metro area. it's easier for you to get away with things. Maybe you don't have to worry so much about your actions.
Hmm.
And no one should really live that way. That's not a good way of living. Um,
Well,
you
it's
know,
like being online. If no one knows who you really are, you can behave however you want to without, I mean, it'll affect you, but you think that there may be less consequences.
yeah. And I think going back to narcissism, I think that that's more the world that they want, a world where it's easier to disguise yourself because
Yeah.
you don't have to, there's no accountability. So whether it's like getting people to live in large cities or whether it's literally dressing up in costumes and like getting all big into these weird groups where they dress up in costumes and it's just, it's like they're playing out their fantasies essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot of this desire for people to avoid their real life and dive into these different, like, whether you're just online or whether you're in different groups, that becomes your whole identity because you're not, I don't know, participating in your own life fully.
Yeah. That's one reason why, as the years have gone by, I've started to like not like Halloween as much as I did before. We still celebrate it.
Same.
We have decorations. We go trick or treating. We don't like despise it, but
Yeah.
I start to observe more in other people. I've especially after learning about narcissism. It's like people
Mhm.
kind of change because on Halloween, you're given official permission to change your identity. And I see
Yeah.
some people get really kind of weirdly into that.
Yeah, I've been pulling, I don't know why, I do feel sort of pulled away from Halloween the older I get, where um when I was a kid it was just something that you do, but now it's like, well, why? Why am I doing that? What is the purpose? What is the point? Like, I love fall. I'm all about fall, but I do feel sort of, I don't know, a divorce from Halloween and what it represents, I guess.
Yeah. It's like the holiday for narcissists because one, you dress up in disguise, which is what they live every day of their lives.
Mhm.
They're living in a disguise. Number two, it kind of celebrates bad and darkness.
Yeah.
Um, you a lot of times there's kind of like a horror element to it, which the narcissists that I know, and I'm not diagnosing them from a
Sure.
um, psychological standpoint. I'm just talking about toxic people in general.
Hmm.
The toxic people in my life, I've noticed that there's this kind of like with some of them, there's like this strange kind of fixation on like horror movies or scary movies because I think I don't know, this is just my own speculation, but I think that they enjoy either the idea of scaring people or having power
Hmm.
over people in that kind of way,
Hmm.
like dark fantasies. I don't know, but like when you go to like the spirit store when they pop up around Halloween
Hmm.
time, there are some like really disturbing things in there that are very,
Increasingly so.
yeah,
Yes, for sure. Well, and then
increasingly.
for girls, Halloween has become, I don't know how to tactfully say it, but promiscuous, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, yeah,
It's just about physical and not even about, even related to what Halloween was or is supposed to be. It's just about promiscuity at this point.
yeah. And that plays into the hands of, because like it within narcissism there's kind of like these two divisions, you main divisions. There's the cerebrals that get their narcissistic supply from being, it could be like, oh, they're really funny or they're really smart or like whatever.
Hmm.
But then you have the somatics that are more focused on the body. And so if you have a somatic narcissist female on Halloween, it's like you're given permission, like dress up in a
Right.
really promiscuous costume, and
Hmm.
it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm really concerned about oh, just the me culture. I mean, it's in songs and it's in movies and it's being sold to everybody, especially I think women, which is interesting that women are supposed to bring in, more people to the church in the second coming. But it does feel like to me that there's an attack on motherhood and on being a wife and on all of the traditional values, even on marriage, because with like, I used to have more of a feminist mindset. I wouldn't call myself a feminist, but I definitely would say, we should share the chores, and I would only see things from my perspective until I realized, my husband's working to provide for our family, and there's got to be a balance. There's got to be a team, and you can't have two quarterbacks. You can't both be trying to do the same thing. Um, I just think it's so detrimental to, it's just selfishness, is we're constantly being told to put ourselves first. And in your marriage, that's a recipe for disaster. And then as a parent, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. When it comes to feminism, there's some things. Okay, so men, based on studies that I'm aware of, men tend to be more narcissistic, or there tend to be more narcissistic men than women. So when it comes to feminism, there's things that I can understand. Like if you have a wife, she's a genuine person, and then she has this man that's narcissistic, he's controlling, and he really uses up all of his what he's allowed to do. He makes the money, he decides how the money is spent, and you're not part of the planning process. Like, that's not good.
That's not going to work. No.
So that falls on the side of feminism, where it's like it should be more equal, but
of course,
that's more of a church value, where it's like men and women are equal. You're both in charge of your family, your household. It's a system. So you should both discuss finances and budget together. No one should be left out.
Right.
But so I would say, like, if you were a genuine feminist, that would be like an issue that would be important to you. But if you're a narcissistic one, it's more about power, and it's more about control, because that's what they pursue. They pursue control. And because they don't really have a genuine self, they don't experience love. Well, I don't think that they really do experience love, which that
requires vulnerability.
Yeah, requires vulnerability. It requires empathy. It requires you to care about other people and their needs. So if you're a narcissistic woman, you don't have those things. You don't really have care. You don't really have love. You want control. And so it's like, ew, babies. I don't want to have babies, because
they're an inconvenience, and
yeah,
I don't want to ruin my body. And there's a whole bunch of things. It's gotten pretty bad. And I think in relationships too, it becomes, instead of collaboration, it's a competition, and it's always this struggle for power or control, I guess.
Yeah, because narcissists, narcissist relationships, they're not really relationships, they're alliances. They're contractual. They are business partnerships. So the motivation for you as a narcissistic person to get married is you want to fit in to your surrounding community. So it's not because you actually love somebody. It's not because you want to share your life with somebody. It's because you need that card. You need that status as part of your facade. So they're going to be like, oh yeah, I support feminism, because I don't really want to have to I don't want marriage to really be popular. I'd rather just be myself, and I don't really want kids because I don't want to take care of things, and I just want to work on me and just get more power, money, stuff like that. So it's just, I feel like understanding narcissism, I feel like it shows you truly this other hidden world that you don't really know about otherwise. You understand
because you can't see past especially if you're naturally like trusting, or not gullible. I'll go with trusting. A naturally trusting person, you don't see beyond the facade. You take them at their word. And then once you get beyond that, like, gaslighting is a horrible experience. When someone, it makes you feel like you're crazy.
Yeah. Well, do you want to define gaslighting for just anyone that isn't familiar with that?
Yeah. So gaslighting, I don't know, the technical definition, but essentially it is lying to someone as if something didn't happen that did. Yeah, just adamantly. And then you start to question yourself, like, well, did I really see what I thought I saw, or did it happen? And it's horrible.
Yeah. I've heard it's like, it's getting people to question their reality, whether it be
Yeah,
their memory, or it could be like, no, you're just too sensitive. That's what's happening, is you're too sensitive. And so
it's
you
manipulative.
question, what was that?
Oh, it's manipulative.
Yeah, yeah. It's a one of the tools of manipulation. You know, there's flat out lying, but there's also gaslighting. That's like a variation of it, or like a certain technique in
Hmm.
lying. So yeah, it's really bad. And that's one reason why I look forward to the millennium, because my running theory is that I'm not going to use the psychological definition of narcissism. I'm just going to talk about a spectrum of bad behavior,
Hmm.
just generally toxic. I think that the more toxic you are, obviously, the more you are on the telestial side of things. And then, therefore, when the millennium comes, a lot of these people that we would classify as narcissists or histrionics or borderline or psychopath or antisocial personality
Yeah.
disorder, whatever, I don't think that they're going to be around. And if there is more to it than what we understand,
Hmm.
maybe some of them will be healed to where that, but I don't think that that's the case. I don't.
Yeah, there's definitely, I sort of am interested in, there's the extremes, like the I don't want to say the worst of the worst in terms of people, but the people without a conscience, essentially. And so, you kind of have to wonder how that works in, and how much is, if they're completely mentally there, or how that works. I don't know. I think that'll be interesting to see. Um,
Yeah.
there will definitely be grace, but the thing that I think is the most hopeful is that, for the most part, everybody can change. And the change starts with reality and truth and ownership of your own actions and your own thoughts in your life. They've been doing studies that show that when you're depressed, you withdraw and you tend to focus more on yourself. And so it's not narcissism. It's just, you naturally withdraw, because either that leads to depression, or the depression is a result of that. One of the things that helps is serving others, connecting, and that empathy, fostering that helps people become less depressed, which I think is essentially a biblical principle, love your neighbor. So then there's all of this truth in the scriptures that can help us in so many ways.
Yeah. And they talk about it. I feel like lately they've been talking about it a lot in general conference, like talking about in this context too, about serving others in order to heal and have proper perspective. And then there was President Nelson the week of Thanksgiving in 2020, when he told everybody to do the 7 days of gratitude, because being grateful, that's the opposite of entitlement. So
Hmm.
because you realize, oh, maybe I'm not entitled to that. It doesn't just automatically come. I should be grateful that I have these things, that
Yeah.
I've been blessed like this. And so obviously that has good psychological benefits, being grateful.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So that's cool. So what are some of like the main, I guess you've kind of already said, but what are some of the main topics that you're going to talk about on the channel in regards to, like, are there certain, I don't know, how are you going to structure it? What do you want? Are you going to have like different
I'm
playlists,
still
or?
getting my sea legs. Yeah, I have playlists. So we like to do a lot of family outings. We'll go discover different places. Recently, we went to Providence Canyon, which is like, it's called the Little Grand Canyon. I've never been to the Grand Canyon, so I can't. I'm sure it's not similar at all, but it was beautiful. So we do that. As we learn homesteading, we'll do that. We show our garden, homeschooling. And then I'm going to talk about sort of traditional values and things that are important to me. Um, freedom focused curriculum. I did a video on that. And then sort of the mental health aspect. I'm just going to start to insert that a little bit.
Well, yeah, with the homeschooling, so we try to do that. We didn't succeed. We didn't succeed. Sorry, because we're just back in school. But what are your thoughts on homeschooling? Like, what are the main benefits that you're getting out of it? Would you recommend it to other people? Do you think it's like good for everyone, or is it
Oh,
just for?
sure.
Okay.
Well, you have to find what works for your family, and there's not a one size fits all solution. It's definitely worked for us. I chose to be homeschooled while I was growing up, off and on, and then I graduated early, so that was beneficial. So I got to experience a little bit of both. For my family, we just like the flexibility. We like to be able to travel. We like to be able to go visit places and people. My oldest has ADHD, so he just could not sit still for the life of him. And he's also advanced in certain areas, so I can give him more of a personalized education at home, and he's very independent. With 4 kids, it is difficult, especially they're very close in age. So like
What are their
10,
ages?
so 10, almost 9, 7, and 5.
Okay. Oh
They were
man.
all born within about 5 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
it gets a
well.
little hectic.
Yeah. Well, good job, and that's good that you're doing it. That was one of the main things that I wanted out of it was for my kids to be able to potentially progress at a quicker rate,
Hmm.
because there have been times in my I always went to public schools for me, but
Hmm.
there are times where I feel I could have advanced quicker, or on the other side, some things that I maybe struggled with that I wish I could have spent more time
Hmm.
with. So that is one of the big advantages to it.
Yeah. Well, and I think as people start to homeschool, especially having been in public school, they're not going to look the same at all. Homeschooling is typically a lot quicker.
Mhm.
There's some things that we can do family style, like one lesson and everybody sits, but I have to have like fidget spinners or slime or something for my kids to be not distracted with, but moving so that they can listen. Otherwise, it's just chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's definitely a learning curve. And then I pick and choose different curriculums. So we'll use a little bit of like the good and the beautiful. And then we use what's called CTC math. It's an Australian. I didn't want Common Core, so I looked for something without that.
Yeah. I don't really understand the Common Core at all. I guess I'm not necessarily against it, but definitely prefer the way that I learned. Um,
One, they show different ways in this one, which is why, because people see math, make connections in different
yeah,
ways.
yeah. Well, that's really cool. It's good that you're able to do that. Yeah, everybody just they have to like pick for themselves what's best for
Hmm.
their family. But I think the important thing is to follow the spirit, because maybe the spirit will tell you, yeah, do homeschooling, and it could be for any number of reasons
Hmm.
that you don't know, or it could be the other way around. Um, one benefit of going to public school is just that opportunity to share light with other
Yeah.
students,
Yep.
but it may not be right for you. Just have to pray and
Yeah,
realize
definitely.
what Heavenly Father wants you to do. I hate it when people, with certain issues like this, they'll either take one side like strong, like, no, you should never do this, or you should never. Like, I think there needs to be flexibility, and everyone's individual.
Yeah, I've seen that more in the church lately as well, where it's like personal revelation and, finding the right fit for you. And, we all have different strengths and weaknesses, and our lives aren't all going to look the same.
No, definitely not. It's kind of mind blowing, because you think about how many people have lived on the earth, and then on top of that, all of Heavenly Father's worlds, and everyone is an individual. And the thing is that you have infinite potential with, like, I think literally infinite potential within you, and there's things that you have to bring to the table that no one in all of eternity will ever duplicate with certain things.
Yeah.
So we are all very different, and it's kind of like it's mind bending when you think
Yeah,
about it.
that's amazing.
Yeah. So um you mind if I ask, where were you guys stationed at? Like, what are the different
Oh, sure.
bases?
So we started in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and then we moved to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Tinker. And then he got out and we went to Ellensburg, Washington, where we went to school. And he was in the reserves while he was there out at Lewis McCord.
uh
and then Mountain Home Air Force Base. And while we were in Washington, we went and lived in Japan for a while, not with the military. My husband speaks Japanese, so he went to university over there.
Wow. Holy cow. Well, was he an officer?
Not at first. He was enlisted, and then he went through ROTC to become an officer.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's really cool. It's cool that you guys had that experience going to Japan.
It was amazing, especially going to church over there. We were closest to like a little branch, which was like a warehouse building with this. It wasn't a church. It was just where people met. And I'd never really experienced that before, but the gospel is the same all over the world. And that's one of my favorite things about this church.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we should probably wrap it up here.
Okay.
This was good conversation.
Yeah,
So
I enjoyed it.
Everyone, make sure to check her channel. Now, your last name is not right?
Oh, no. Those are my initials. So
Okay.
my initials are MEH, meh.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, Megan, okay, so make sure to check her out. She's going to have good stuff. Hopefully you enjoyed this kind of conversation, talking about psychology, and I know she'll have a good channel. So I'll put the description the link in the description below, but also I already have her featured on my homepage. So just go to my homepage and she's right there under featured channels. Thank you so much for your time. I know that you're going to succeed both with YouTube and just life in general. And thank you for all that you do.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed this conversation as well.
Great. Me too. I'll talk to you guys later.